US Secretary of State John Kerry says any new sanction on Iran would send a wrong message to the countries involved in the nuclear negotiations with Tehran. Kerry was briefing the US congressmen about the recent nuclear deal between Iran and the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany in Geneva. Kerry said that the new sanctions will eventually lead to removal of all sanctions because other negotiating partners will not follow suit. He said that President Barack Obama is committed and needs the congressional help to resolve the nuclear issue, which he called, quote, the most urgent, critical and pressing. At one point, Kerry also said the military option against Iran is not off the table, but he said he hopes Iran's nuclear issue can be resolved faster than the 6 months. Let's go to Ohio and talk to Gordon Duff, senior editor with Veterans Today. Welcome, sir. Mr. Duff, it seems that the Congress is very sceptical about this recent Iran nuclear deal. Just how much do you think they will listen to urges by US Secretary of State John Kerry not to impose new sanctions against Iran?
Well, most of the story that we're getting about what Congress believes and what Congress says is coming from really very much controlled press. Kerry was in front of the House of Representatives today. That's the lower house that has almost nothing to do with foreign affairs at all. He was not in front of the Senate. That was misreported. In fact, the stories that indicate that there's broad Senate support for sanctions are totally false. There is almost no support in the U.S. Senate for sanctions. 75% of the American people, when polled, are strongly behind this deal with Iran. And it seems like pretty much everyone but the members of the very much Israeli-controlled lower house, the House of Representatives, not the Senate, and the news. And the news in this case took the story about the House and misreported it as involving a majority of the members of the Senate. In fact, there is almost no support in the Senate for this Israeli position, and there's almost no support for sanctions against Iran. This is a story that's being blown up, I believe, to poison the relationship between Iran and the United States, being purposefully manipulated in the press, and it's very damaging. And I certainly hope that leaders in the U.S. and Iran are not influenced by what is basically shoddy news reporting.
And of course, if the sanctions are ratified by the Congress and imposed against Iran, what do you think other members of the P5+1 will do? How do you think they would react? And of course, from then on, what would Iran do as well?
The U.S. would become a pariah entirely. If the President of the United States no longer has any power over his nation's foreign relations, and this would indicate that, then the word of the United States would be nothing. China and Russia would take over essentially the American role in South Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. More than that, the EU would separate itself from the United States as well. The United States would no longer be a player in the world were this to happen.
And of course, what would Iran do?
Well, what I think is very important for Iran right now is that they see that the stories that are coming out of the American papers don't fact check. There is no support in the U.S. Senate. More than 1 or 2 people closely aligned, these are minor players, closely aligned to the Israeli lobby. There is no chance that the Senate is going to support additional sanctions. And according to U.S. law, it takes a 2/3 majority in the U.S. Senate to override a presidential veto, and those numbers will never exist. This is a story that's more smoke and little else.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Many thanks to Gordon Duff, senior editor with Veterans Today from Ohio. Thanks for your thoughts there, sir.